Welcome to the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast, where all things football are injected right to your veins, with your hosts, Matt Donnelly, Calvin Shoemake, and Jeff Mueller.
What is up? And welcome to an exciting edition of the Dynasty Vipers Team Spotlight Series. I am pumped to be joined by, as you can see, an all-star cast here. We're going to talk about Bills Mafia and all things Bills. But before we do, just want to introduce everyone to exactly what we're doing here today. This is going to be a show where we're going to be talking from a Dynasty perspective, but it's important that we understand these teams. Typically the calendar rolls over. We get into January, February. People start thinking about rookies, and we should. Rookies are important, but we also need to understand the teams that they land into and they find themselves in, what kind of fantasy situation it's going to be, all of that. The more we understand these teams, the more we can think about it, the better it's ultimately going to be. So to do that, I'm asking people from all over, from all 32 teams, to join me on a special episode where we cover the team, and not just smart football people, but people who know the team, love the team, watch all the plays, watch the games. And gosh, what an exciting time to have done that this past year for the Buffalo Bills. So let's go around the room. Petey, I'll start with you. Just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where we can find you, and what you've been working on.
Well, I'm Petey Stitz. You can find me at Petey Stitz, which is basically just the at before my screen name that I have written out there. Working on being a parent now that the football season has wound down. I can focus on my girls and everything. But no, actually, currently in a Dynasty startup draft with the Fantasy Besties. We just entered round 15. Started the other day because, what's life without fantasy? So actually took Gabriel Davis in one of the rounds, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, that's really all that's going on right now. So
question right here from Matt Donnelly, Dynasty Vipers own. Where is the piano?
The piano is back in my daughter's playroom. I did not bring it out this time.
Okay. And I guess maybe we'll have a special edition where we can get parent tips from Dingus. That would be a great segment at some point. He does have 14 kids, for anybody who doesn't know that. That's not an exaggeration. That's the real number of children that he has. So, Jeff, where can we find you? And I guess most importantly, if we have questions about Disney princesses, is your account the right one to go to?
Absolutely. I'm your expert on everything Disney. I've got 2 little girls, and so Disney Plus gets worn out in our household. Jeff at For Whom J Bell Tolls. You can find me going for 2. I do Devy content, doing a lot of draft content right now over there. You can find me at @JoinOurCircle_ Fantasy Intervention. I've been doing a lot of stuff with them. Right now I'm just grinding on getting Devy Rakes up for Fantasy Pros.
If you missed that Saturday morning, that was a pretty fun Saturday morning where we were all debating our favorite Disney princesses for whatever reason. I have no idea why, but we did. So, Matt, we'll toss it over to you next. Tell us who you are and where we can find you.
Matt Marchese. You can find me at Sportsnet. Also a radio host for Sportsnet 590 The Fan in Toronto. Took a little bit of a hiatus with some fantasy content, but it'll be back following the Super Bowl. I have some ADP risers and fallers that's coming out, so you can check me out there. And of course, like everybody in this room, huge Bills fan.
And last but certainly not least, Victoria, just tell us a little bit about who you are, and are you working on anything these days that we can find you? Where we can find you?
Yeah, you can find me at FFB_Victoria. I'm fairly new to the community, been officially on Twitter for a couple months, but I've been lurking in the background on my personal account for a couple of years now. But I love fantasy and I love the community. Y'all are great and have been giving me a warm welcome, so I'm happy to be here. I'm just getting my feet wet.
Well, I'm very thankful to all of you for joining to talk about the Bills here. But to that point, let's talk about the Bills now. Let's get into what it's like being a Buffalo Bill fan. And so, Victoria, I'm going to toss it right back to you. just tell us a little bit about your history with the team, when you started following them, and maybe some of your some favorite times and memories that you have with the Bills.
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York, in a little suburb right outside of it. No longer reside there because of the horrible winters. But I've endured heartbreak as a Buffalo sports fan for many, many years. And I was born in the 90s, so I wasn't quite old enough to understand the heartbreak of those 4 Super Bowl losses until I watched the 4 Falls of Buffalo. And I will admit I cried watching that. But when you're a Bills fan, you're not a bandwagon fan. You endure all the heartbreaks, the letdowns every single year. This is our year, bumper stickers, and for once, this year felt like the pain was worth it. For once, maybe arguably last year as well too. God, my favorite player is obviously Josh Allen right now, but from previous years, I love Fred Jackson. Kyle Williams, and Trey White's probably my second favorite guy right now. So
awesome. Matt, let's go with you next. Just your history with the team.
My dad was a Bills fan growing up because that was closest team proximity to Toronto, and I was a late '80s baby, so I don't remember anything about the 4 straight Super Bowl losses either. But I've known, like everybody in here, a lot of heartbreak with this team. Like, I remember thinking that EJ Manuel was going to be the real deal. I thought JP Lostman was going to be a star, and they all sucked. So we've been through it, and like Victoria said, nobody says, yeah, I'm a Bills fan, and you look at them and go, yeah, you're a bandwagon jumper. Like, you're Bills Mafia through and through. There's no change in it now. I mean, and now it's finally, you see this team on the field, and you're like, okay, they finally found something here. And watching the improvements of these guys and this core group of young guys that they have, it's special. It's a lot of fun. Like, I would have loved to have seen a Super Bowl appearance, but getting to the AFC Championship, man, you got to trust this process that they're going through right now.
And just, if you guys don't know, Bob is awesome. He is the man behind the scenes with a lot of our graphics and things like that. But just so you know, he is a Patriot fan struggling to deal with the reality of the changing of the guard. So congratulations, we'll be repeat division champs next season. I don't know about that. This is a team in a pretty good situation here that we're talking about tonight. So, Jeff, kick it back over to you. What's your history with the team look like?
So I am old enough to have lived through the Super Bowl era, and I think you could maybe start with saying that I started as a front runner. I grew up in Ohio, and I grew up right in the middle of Browns, Bengals, and Lions country. My dad wasn't into NFL at all. I kind of went to school, and everybody was like, well, who's your team? And I looked around, and I was like, I don't want to pick any of these local teams. The Bills are red, white, and blue. They're the best team in Tecmo Bowl. That's my guys. I'm going to roll with them. So that's where it all started. And I think over the last 20 years, I've earned the badge of not being a Buffalo resident, but certainly lived the heartbreak and lived the down times. I grew up, I had Thurman Thomas on my wall. He was always my guy growing up. Can't not be a Josh Allen fan now. I really had a lot of faith coming him into the draft, but as Petey mentioned, we've been through so many terrible quarterbacks that you just don't know. You never knew. But obviously now we're very excited. So.
Yep. Yes, as Matt mentions here, we got to bring up Tecmo Bowl. You can't talk about Tecmo Bowl without Bo Jackson.
He was, but the Bills were really good in Tecmo Bowl too. So don't even, they had, you could tear it up with Thurman.
Little known fact, they were pretty good there, but nobody played with the Bills. Just you. You were the only one, Jeff.
Just me. That's fine.
Petey, how about you? What's your history with the team look like?
My history begins with my grandmother. Honestly, spending so much time over at her house. She lived 5 doors down from me growing up. I was at her house for every single Bills game during each season for I don't know how many years. There was only one rule: you couldn't talk when the game was on. You had to wait for a commercial, no matter what it was. But no, she's honestly the reason I got into football in general, and fantasy. Spinning off of that, I owe everything to her. I wish she was here to see this team today. She would have absolutely loved them. And her favorite was Jim Kelly, so that kind of bled into me as well. I have 2 of his jerseys, actually. one hanging up and one that I wear. So I would say he's my favorite player. But any of those guys from the 90s, I mean, how do you not love them? I actually am followed by Cornelius Bennett on Twitter, which is pretty badass. And Andre Reed liked one of my tweets a couple of months ago, so even that was cool. But I got to see Bruce Smith retire at that Thursday night game. That was phenomenal. So many memories. I could talk a guy's ears off about all of them, but don't want to take too much time.
I couldn't find it for the show. I tried so hard, but I actually do have a Bills jersey, but it's Willis McGahee. That's the one, for whatever reason, the one Bills jersey you
can keep that tucked away wherever you may have it. There's no reason to bring that thing back out.
Everybody's got those obscure jerseys. Like mine's it's not even that obscure. Like I've got a Paul Posluszny jersey.
Dante Whitner. I've got a Dante Whitner. So.
I got CJ Spiller, Mario Williams. Like we can roll down the list here.
Oh, CJ Spiller.
I have JP Lostman and Trent Edwards of that era. Yep.
Just because it's his birthday today, can we talk that in the really lean years that Brian Moorman, the punter, was the Bills' highest grossing jersey sale? Like that's if you're not a Bills fan, then you don't even understand that heartbreak.
Is that real?
That's real. That is 100% real. He was a Pro Bowler. Really Come on.
The punter was the highest selling jersey. That's Bills for you. That's Buffalo Bills for you. I have a football with his autograph and Ryan Lindell, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
CJ Spiller won me a championship one year in fantasy, and then the Saints, I'm a Saints fan, the Saints signed him the next year, and I thought I was going to die. I was like, oh my God, this is so awesome. And he was like nothing. He never did anything again. But I liked CJ Spiller for a little while there, while he was in Buffalo at least. But so let's talk about 2020, right? So when, I don't know, 20 years from now, 25 years from now, I have grandkids that ask me like, hey, what was football like in 2020? Yeah, obviously coronavirus was a big story. I'm going to tell them about the time where a team played a game without quarterback, because that was really weird. And then it's the year that everybody became a Buffalo Bill fan. Like everybody on my timeline was like, Bills, ride or die, Bills Mafia. It was everyone. So, Matt, was that kind of a surreal thing for you? Were you kind of wow, were you embracing it? Or were you you know what? You were not raised in this. Get out of here.
I was absolutely in the class of get out of here.
Okay.
Because if you didn't experience the pain, I have family members who constantly make fun of me because I'm a Bills fan and ask me why I'm still a Bills fan. I say it's because I'm over 30 and the time to change teams is long gone. You're not 8. But it's fun. I just find it really funny because they were always kind of the lovable losers. They didn't have the hatred. Everybody just kind of felt sorry for them. And now everybody's like, oh, hey, look, the Buffalo Bills. Oh man, these guys are awesome. Look, their fans jump through tables. It's nah, you're not part of that. I tweeted it. If you weren't with us then, and it was a picture of JP Lostman, it says, don't cheer for us now. And it was a picture of the guys saying one more win or whatever. That. You know what? Everybody can stick to their own teams. Don't be a bandwagon jumper. We have our own hardcore fans. We don't need anybody else.
Jeff, do you agree?
It didn't heartbreak me that way. It was just so exciting to be involved, to be one of those teams that everybody was excited about, that everybody wanted to watch. We made the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years, but that was more of a defensive team. The first year was Tyrod, and that was kind of a mess. And even last year with Allen, it was kind of just don't screw it up, and the defense will kind of carry us through. So the transition to being an offensive team and being fun and scoring points, I just enjoyed the ride.
Victoria, were you as protective of your fanhood as Matt is?
Not. At first I kind of was a little bit annoyed, but honestly, the more and more people, like you said, you saw on your timeline, you just got excited. You're like, wow, people are actually paying attention to us. I did, however, enjoy that I enjoy the underdog narrative because I feel like it feeds the guys. It just feeds them before game time. Like when Baltimore, that playoff game, and people were still calling us the underdogs and calling us out, and that was a fantastic performance. But no, I was super excited I had people texting me out of the woodwork. I mean, people that my girlfriends that know nothing about football, they're like, go Bills. I'm like, this is awesome, honestly.
Pete, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in both boats. Like Matt was saying, it's kind of like, really, now you're going to jump on board, after we went through 25 years of hell. But at the same time, I, again, was like, whatever. If you want to jump on the bandwagon, that's fine. Just when they inevitably break your heart, which they did, I mean, AFC loss and everything, don't like get out of the bandwagon, then like key it up and, like carve in like Patriots rule or something on the side of our wagons. We circle these things every year. You want to jump on it, that's fine. Just graciously get off of it at the end of the season when you're no longer happy with us. That's how I felt about it. Like, just don't turn around and be like, oh, the Bills suck. They let you down again. What did you, blah, blah, blah. When for the last 4 weeks, you're like, go Bills. Like, nah, screw that.
I love it.
If you're gonna act that way, then yeah, we don't need you. If you're gonna be gracious about it, if you're gonna be, okay, I'll get on and then I'll get off and I'll go root for the Jets or whoever again, that's fine. Everybody needs somebody to root for after their team is gone. So why not?
I feel like I know the answer to this question, but I just want like a quick 1 to 10 from everyone here, because it all starts at the top. I mean, and it does seem like there was a lot of really good moves that were made in terms of bringing in a great GM, Sean McDermott, the head coach, man. He just, seems like he's inspired a lot of confidence in that team. Brian Dable, the offensive coordinator, is awesome. And Leslie Frazier, it seems like, and they're bringing the band back together, right? I mean, so when you look at this coaching staff and the front office and all that, Jeff, I'll start with you. Just 1 to 10 confidence level. Where do you feel as far as the front office and the coaching staff and all? How much faith do you have in them?
I'd say I'd probably about a 9 right now. I mean, it's hard to give it a full 10. There's a looming cap issues, and we did miss on some early picks. Ed Oliver, you'd love to see a bigger impact with where he was drafted. We took running backs back-to-back years in the 3rd round, and I don't think either of them are the guys. So there's still some glaring things that you want to shore up. So I'm excited about it. You can't, for where they were when they took over, to be making the playoffs in 3 of the last 4 years. I mean, we spent 20 years dreaming about any playoff game. So in that regard, I think they're headed in the right direction. You'd just like to see some of the weakness points shoring up a little bit.
Yeah. Matt, what do you think? Are you kind of 9, 9.5, 4? Where are you at?
I'm with Jeff here. I'm about a 9. I could go 8.5 here because like Jeff said, there are things that need to be figured out. I mean, the defense had some glaring holes in it, and we saw what happened, and they were exposed a lot through this season. The one thing I will say is I have faith that they will fix those issues. So I have full faith in Brandon Beane. There are a lot of people that were detractors of Josh Allen, and he was not one of them. And that turned out to be a really wise decision. And he's bringing in or helping bring in members of the coaching staff. So I have the utmost confidence in Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott. Honestly, what else can you say about him? He's a great motivator, and he lets his guys play, but he also takes his guys aside when he needs to. Says you need to be better. And I think that mentality of always wanting to get better is something that he's brought to this organization, and it's really worked out.
Well, and I like that it seems to have carried over the fan base here, because I fully expected 10s, and I'm not hearing a 10 yet. Victoria, what do you think?
Nobody's going to give them a 10 because of that looming heartbreak we all are scared of. We're all like, we're good, but we don't want to be overconfident. We're not quite there yet. I think I'm probably in the same range, 8.5 to 9. I think we need to hit on our picks in the draft. I think that it needs to be an almost perfect draft to make sure that we are filling in, as Matt mentioned, those holes. I mean, you saw that the O-line couldn't get the run game going against the Chiefs, and frankly, all year it was non-existent. We need a good edge rusher, and defense was exposed over the entire season. I mean, we came to play against Baltimore, but we had 0 answers for the Chiefs. So my confidence is high because you can't hit on every pick, but the things that they have hit on in Diggs and just building around Josh in general, I mean, I have a pretty good confidence level going.
Yeah, obviously Diggs, that was a great move. Another just great move by the front office. But you guys are right. Not necessarily perfect. I mean, there's always going to be some errors there. Pete, are you kind of right in the same range?
I'm a little bit lower. only because of their salary cap, for lack of a better word, I'll say issues. It's not really an issue, but that's something that they definitely are going to have to evaluate this offseason. And a lot of where they're going to save money is in the wide receiver core. So, I mean, they're going to be able to save 12 and a half, if I did my math correctly, if they end up releasing John Brown and Cole Beasley. And not so much John Brown because of his injuries this year, but Cole Beasley was a huge impact in this offense last year. So that's going to be a tough decision to make because you also have Milano hanging out there, due for an extension as well. And let's face it, they should really be looking at a serious extension for Josh Allen right now. The market is only going to inflate after what we've seen, he's only going to cost more the longer we wait to extend him. So I really, really hope that they work on extension for him. Just get him locked in now. Give him that bonkers deal. I'm not saying give him Mahomes money. I'm not saying that. I'm saying hey, 7 to 8 years and 275. That's not crazy anymore. So there's a lot of holes and a lot of things that need to be addressed this offseason. So I am confident, but just with the amount that is going to be on their plate, I'm looking at it like a 7.5 to an 8 because they're not going to hit on every single move that they have to make. Now we saw great right out of the gate talent in Gabriel Davis, as I kind of mentioned earlier. So especially if John Brown gets released, okay, we have a filler for that position as well. But we're going to need another slot guy if they decide to part ways with Cole Beasley to save. I think they save about $4.5 million if they, waive him. So that's a good chunk. So yes, I'm very interested to see, how they're going to evolve with things. So I'm going to say 7.5 to an 8.
No, I like that. I like the you guys holding back on giving them the full hey, we're 100% behind you, just because like you said, hey, they didn't finish the job. I mean, they did fall short a little bit. I think that's it's hard when you're looking at a generational talent like Pat Mahomes, but if you're going to build something, I mean, you guys are building where you now got a guy that is arguably a generational talent himself, and he didn't look like he was going to be that way. Matt, I'll toss it over to you because you mentioned it, but Josh Allen did not come in as a guy that everybody was, thought could be one of the best 3-5 quarterbacks in the NFL or on the planet. And here he is, arguably right there, the top 2-3 quarterbacks in the league. What did you see this year with him, clearly progressing? I mean, look, second in points, second in yards for, only 11th in passing attempts, and then third in passing yards and third in passing TDs. So not just short passes from a guy that his accuracy was just talked about as it was going to be the worst thing ever. Clearly, I mean, pushing the ball down the field, completing passes, not relying on short stuff. Matt, what did you see out of Josh Allen this year that you think everybody missed on initially?
Well, the accuracy was always, part of the issue coming out of college because, everybody says if you don't complete 60% of your passes in college, well, you can't do it in the NFL. Well, sometimes things happen. And what we saw from Josh Allen was a total change in mechanics. We saw him hit. They also built the playbook to, give him those shorter yard completions, which does help your completion percentage, but it also keeps the defense on their toes and opens things up down the field. There was a stat going into our last season where Josh Allen had one of the best completion percentages from 11 to 20 yards or something like that. It was those really, really short throws that he was struggling with, and then he was really missing on the deep ball. What we saw was a complete change in philosophy offensively. It also does help when you bring in Stephon Diggs. And if you watch his throwing motion, those mechanics are totally different than what we saw when he came out of Wyoming. So he put in the work, and that's the one thing that I think any fan of any team and any football fan will see Josh Allen and say, that guy is a guy that you want to play for and play with. He goes out, he battles, he takes his lumps where he takes his lumps, but he's showing that he is an elite talent in the NFL. We saw by all his numbers. I mean, that kind of jump, and everybody, if you listen to all the analysts that called games this year, all they talked about was how nobody could have seen this jump coming. And I don't think anybody could have. But to go from what a lot of people thought was there we go. Petey's got an idea.
No, I'm saying I saw it coming.
what we saw was a guy go from what many thought was a maybe average NFL quarterback to an elite quarterback in one season, something that we've never seen before.
Pete, what did you see? If you saw it coming, like what did you see in Josh Allen that made you think he could be this?
You know what? Most of it was just fandom, homerism, fandom, optimism to the extreme, however you want to look at it. I was actually torn apart in my Scott Fishbowl division because I took Josh Allen in the 3rd round, and I actually was able to pair him with Diggs. I believe I got him in the 8th. And people in the division were like, "Oh my God, Josh Allen's the worst quarterback to have, especially in this type of scoring format and everything like that." And I was the division winner, and I finished in 2nd in the conference finals. If I had finished 1st, I would have gone to the finals. And everybody in my division was eating crow, so it was a good feeling. But alas, no. I mean, Matt hit on everything. They formed the playbook to Allen. That showed me that this team was invested. We went through so many years of quarterbacks where, they drafted EJ Manuel, but he didn't flash coming right out. And then they just said, to hell with him. And, we had all of these, we had this QB roulette wheel for 20 since Kelly. I think he retired, 98, if I'm not mistaken. So for the better part of 20 years, we had this, QB roulette, and it was just, if you didn't flash in the first couple of seasons, you were gone, next man up and everything. I mean, for Christ's sake, we had Brian Brom starting in half the, Tyler Thigpen, these names that are just like, if you're not a Bills fan, you don't even know who these people are. So, what showed me is them investing in Allen, finally just saying, you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he only threw 58 or completed 58% of his passes in his 2nd year. There's something special in this kid. Sean McDermott saw something special in this kid, and he went with it. And Brian Beane gave him the reins. He was just like, "Listen, I believe in you. Here, just go for it." And here we are. Sean McDermott is the first coach with an extension given to him since Marv Levy. Back in that era of going to 4 Super Bowls in a row. Yes, we lost. For those playing the home game. Anyway, but that's what gives me the confidence in this team and this coaching staff. I love to see it.
So JP Lostman is my favorite no-name Bills quarterback because he was a Tulane guy, and that's right here from New Orleans. So Victoria,
I have his autographed jersey, by the way. I'll show it to you sometime.
Victoria, your favorite Buffalo Bill, Josh Allen, did a lot of good in this season, and part of it, he finally had some weapons to work with. I think people forget that in 2019, Kelvin Benjamin was one of his most targeted players. Victoria, what'd you see from Josh Allen?
Oh, first of all, Kelvin Benjamin was the bane of my existence. I just wanted to put that out there. I mean, no one saw this coming, right? We've all already discussed that. But he didn't have as much experience coming out of Wyoming as some of these other quarterbacks that went in that first round. He didn't have as many pass attempts. He didn't have the talent on his team. So sometimes he probably tried to put the game on his back, like he still does sometimes. Playoff Josh gets a little nervous, So, I mean, yes, no one saw this coming, but he's the kind of guy that is putting in the work. He wants to get better, and that's why the guys around him want to play for him, because he'll do anything to win. So that's my man.
Jeff, what do you think? Josh Allen.
I was really high on Allen, higher. And I think you go back to when he was getting drafted. If you paid attention to, there was a real split. And it was a lot of people, I really like Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks. I listen to their stuff a lot. I know Chris Sims. People that had the background playing or scouting loved Josh Allen because they looked at what he could do and what he couldn't do. They thought that was fixable, which obviously it was. I think some of the media that wasn't involved in that background, didn't have that scouting background, they were all over Josh Rosen because he was the UCLA guy, the chosen kid out of California. And I do think that obviously Allen has shown that the tools were there. He put in the work with Jordan Palmer and has been able to develop. So I was always a believer, and I'm thrilled that it came through the way that it did.
Yeah, of course. And like, I think that's, obviously you look at who's in the Super Bowl right now, Pat Mahomes and Tom Brady. I think without having that superstar elite quarterback, it's hard to make it. I mean, right now it's like defenses win championships. No, like elite quarterbacks kind of win championships. So, and you guys certainly have that right now. So part of building that team as we look at the offseason is retaining the people and the players that, were coming back or who are free agents. This team has quite a few. I mean, you've got Trent Murphy, the defensive end. Tyler Kroft. I don't know if you're hanging on to him, but Josh Norman, who I did not realize was still in the NFL, but he's 34 and still kicking around. Like Matt Milano is a free agent. Not a lot of huge names on that list, but there are some potential cap casualties, and you guys brought it up here, and that certainly is a big part of the story. And Quentin Jefferson, defensive lineman, you can save $8 million by cutting him. John Brown, almost $8 million by cutting him. Vernon Butler, almost $7 million by cutting him. Mitch Morse, center. I mean, then Lee Smith, Teron Johnson. You mentioned Cole Beasley. Like, what? I guess I'll just toss it around. Like, what of those names do you think they are going to focus on and make sure that they retain, or do you think maybe they could let a lot of those guys go and kind of look at the free agent market? Jeff, I'm going to toss it right back to you. Like, who do you expect them to retain out of that group?
Really, there's none of those names that stand out. Trent Murphy's been a guy that probably should have been a cap casualty before. The depth in the defensive line would be nice to have, but at the same time, not having Star Lotulelei just killed him this year, I think, on the run defense. And once he opted out, him coming back, he's kind of going to fill some of those roles a little bit. John Brown, I love John Brown, unless he takes a bargain basement deal. And I think it's going to be a brutal market for wide receivers out there. So he might come back on a much lower deal, but we saw Gabriel Davis step up, and that might be the type of position where we need to go with some youth. The rest of the guys, Morris, people are really split on him. He's kind of been the quarterback in the middle, but he has gotten beat a lot. I think there's going to be a lot of Brandon Beane has shown willingness to ask people to take less money, and I think he'll kind of go around the locker room and do a little bit of that this year, making sure people are bought in. And none of those guys are difference makers, and a lot of those guys were brought in to kind of be the vets to help show how to win. But now that younger players have experienced it, you kind of cycle a team through that way, and hopefully that you can build some of that cheaper, younger depth throughout the draft or other avenues.
Pete, what do you think? Who are you hoping they retain?
Oh, who do I hope they retain?
Yeah.
I had something prepared for the other side of it. You threw me off.
Go ahead.
No, well, I can answer this question. I guess kind of going off my earlier point, I would hope that they maybe try to restructure a deal or just keep them at the same number if they find, cash savers elsewhere with Cole Beasley. I mean, just with the production he was able to do in the slot, it's not easy to find. Maybe it is. I'm not a scout, but Cole Beasley is a special talent. He is north of 30 though, so it does kind of make me wary about that. But like Jeff was saying, Gabriel Davis really stepped up in his rookie year, and I really don't see any reason for him to not just slide right into that John Brown role, whether we retain Brown on a lesser salary or just waive him altogether. That wouldn't shock me. I kind of hope that they would go John Brown over Cole Beasley, at least for this year, and then reevaluate for 2022. And on the defensive side of things, I like Milano. I've been seeing things all over Twitter about a 50-50 split on him. Some people are saying keep him. Some people are saying the hell with him. I got no, he's decent. I mean, I don't buy into the narrative of, we were 15-1 when Milano started. Okay, come on. That it's not just because of one guy. People come up with these crazy conspiracies and everything and these theories and whatever. And it's like, come on. But I don't mind Milano. I think he is a good pairing with Tremaine Edmonds. And I'm seeing a lot of talk, not so much lately, but about 3-4 days ago, I was seeing a lot of talk about, we should make a trade for J.J. Watt. I mean, obviously, Milano would probably have to, take a walk if that were the case. I wouldn't be thrilled about that move. I wouldn't hate it because, hey, it's J.J. Watt. I mean, just namesake alone. But I'm not drooling over that aspect of getting J.J. Watt. I honestly feel our biggest move right now is depth at the offensive line. Cody Ford not being around. We did not, as Victoria brought up earlier, our offensive line cannot create holes for our running backs. I think we have talented running backs. I think if a decent running back like Harris happens to fall to us at 30, which I did see an analyst prediction, I forget who it was from, but they were saying, oh yeah, Harris could totally be taken at 30. I'm like, really? I would probably poo myself if I saw that happen. I wouldn't want the Bills to necessarily move up for Harris, for that position. If they can find value just sticking right at 30, why move around? But yeah, if Harris can fall to us at 30, we'd be fools not to take him. So I think this draft needs to focus on depth on the offensive line and see what you can do in free agency for defense.
Let's talk about Cole Beasley for a second, because Matt brings up a really good point here. It'd be really hard to replace his rap game in the locker room. That's a very underrated point. I mean, I'm not sure J.J. Watt could fill that, but
just buy the LP. I don't
know. It initially was kind of a joke. Matt brought it up, and I was like, "Oh, haha, Cole Beasley rapping," but he's actually pretty good. I don't know who mentioned it on Twitter, but somebody said he should be the Super Bowl halftime show, and he definitely should, no doubt. Matt, let me ask you, Cole Beasley. So you guys watched the game closer than I did, but it seemed to me like, just as watching some Bills game as an NFL fan, and as a Josh Allen fan, like I actually really liked him in fantasy coming into the year. But it seemed like when Josh Allen had time, he could really get cooking with Stephon Diggs and with John Brown. When he was under pressure, it seemed like Cole Beasley was the guy he would look for. Did you kind of see the same thing, Matt?
Oh yeah, and Cole Beasley, I want to say that in 7 years in Dallas, he had 2 100-yard games, and I think in his last 18 with the Bills or something, he had 7 or 6. Like, it was some crazy number. And what we saw was, when you throw the ball that much, teams are expecting that you're going to throw the ball 40 times a game. They're going to play less 8-man boxes. They're going to play, 7 guys, 6 guys in the secondary, and they're going to make you pass. What you need when that happens is you need a guy that can get open underneath. And we saw those stop routes that Cole Beasley ran, let the defender run right past you, and then you gain chunk yardage. The guy would have had 1,000 yards had he played all 16 games. Like, he sat out the last game because of the injury, which we find out was a broken fibula, which is pretty damn tough. And yeah, and when you had John Brown was supposed to be a big part of this offense, and he just didn't play enough to be that guy. That's where Cole Beasley slotted in and became Josh Allen's guy. Part of the problem is why they had to rely on Beasley so much is that the tight end, like Dawson Knox, is fine, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to catch, 50 balls for 650 yards. It's just not going to happen. So that's where you need that guy who can play in the middle of a defense and go up against linebackers who he's much faster than, and he's a complete mismatch. I absolutely love Cole Beasley. Like, I don't see a situation in where they don't bring him back. I think he's just too valuable. I see John Brown gone. I see a bunch of restructures, and they need to find a way to bring back John Feliciano, who is a huge, huge part of that offensive line. When he got hurt, you noticed a big difference. And when he came back, along with Daryl Williams, who's also a free agent, they're going to need to make some moves on the offensive line. I love Matt Milano, but if he wants $14 million, that ship has sailed. And that's where, if Milano is gone, I'd like to see them use, pick 30 on a linebacker, because that's where I think they need to go. I think AJ Klein showed spurts of being really, really good, but we also saw the bad AJ Klein at the beginning of the season, where he was completely dreadful in the first few games that Milano missed. So they've got some work to do, but Cole Beasley would be a priority to keep around. You could probably restructure his deal and save a little bit of money. Even if it's a couple $1 million, that's fine. Whatever you got to do to keep him around. But the points made on Gabriel Davis here, that guy is the big-bodied wide receiver that can get open in the end zone and get open downfield, and he could take the place of John Brown. I have the utmost faith in that.
I think Beasley is almost certainly to return. I mean, just because it was clear they made an effort to surround Josh Allen with talent this past season, and one of the areas that they've been trying to put, Victoria, I'm going to toss this over to you, and feel free to comment on any of that if you want. But I want to ask you about the running back position because they've invested a lot in Devin Singletary in the draft, and then Zach Moss last year. Zach Moss being hurt, I think, really hurt in the playoffs because T.J. Yeldon played too much in a game that you have to win. But what did you see, I guess, out of the running backs? Do you think that there's something to work with between the guys that you have, or do you, like some of these guys, maybe hope that they pick up somebody in the draft?
I'm really an offensive line believer. That's not to say that I don't think running backs matter. I'm just kind of in the middle there. That being said, interesting statistic is that of the top 20 running backs last season, only 4 were selected in the first round of the draft, and of the top 10, only 2 were drafted in the first round. So first round running back, not a guaranteed hit if you're going to try to get a tried and true running back with our first round pick. I think we need to upgrade the O-line, and we need to create holes. We're not good enough in that realm. I think Matt took a lot of. I was just nodding my head to everything Matt was saying there, especially about Beasley and that we don't have a good enough tight end to create that mismatch. But I would love to bring back Daryl Williams. He was just solid for the Bills down the stretch. I wonder if we could restructure with Mitch Morse. He was great for us when we first had him, and I just feel like the level of competition has just gone down there. And as far as our running back stats go, Moss and Singletary, like we've hit on, they are talented. I just think we don't have that O-line that can open up those holes for them and create some separation for them there. I'm not a fan of. I don't want to sign Chris Carson. I don't see being investing in someone like Aaron Jones, who's going to demand a ton of money in free agency. And if they want to try to hit on a later round pick again, why not? Also, what else here? I was thinking of. I feel like they only had a really small statistic of carries for 10 or more yards in the season. We never really saw that out of Moss or Singletary. So sure, if they want to upgrade or add someone to the room, I just don't see them going out and getting that big free agent name for a running back. I think investing in the O-line, especially in the draft, I'd love to see that with our first round pick.
Just quick on the running backs, just because I was looking up some stuff, and Singletary faced 8 men in the box 4.49% of his carries. The only guy that faced less was J.D. McKissick, and that was 1%. Zach Moss faced 8 men in the box 14% of the time that he was on the field. But the thing is that their yards per carry, I know that's not the be-all and end-all, but Singletary's yards per carry was 5.1, and Zach Moss in an injury-shortened year was 4.3. So they're not horrible. It's just I wonder how much they actually can get into a groove because they throw the ball so much. And even when they were up big in games, they didn't really rely on the running game. And maybe it's because they didn't think that they had, that workhorse guy that could just mow teams down. But I still think Zach Moss is that guy. Singletary's fine as a change of pace guy. He lacks a little bit of burst. But the numbers were there. It's just I think they just need more reps at this point.
Jeff, what do you think? Or no, go ahead. Yeah, this is good. You guys talk about your team.
No, it's fine. I did see that same thing. So they faced a stacked box, the third lowest in the whole entire league. When teams aren't looking for that, they're expecting the pass, they're not going to stack the box. And they had the 4th highest percentage of runs that were stuffed, meaning 0 or negative yardage. That's 1 every 10 attempts almost. That's where the O-line is that glaring weakness for me. Yeah, there we go. I love that Moss jersey. I do believe in Moss. I do. I love Moss, and he was great until his injury, but hopefully he can come back for us here and come back strong and be our guy.
See, I don't think that you want, like, we're not going to be a team that lines up and runs the ball 30 times a game with Allen is so good and Diggs is so good. I don't think we want to build a team that way. You know, you see the Chiefs and they don't do it. My biggest thing why I don't believe in Moss or Singletary is they just can't break the chunk yards and they can't, you know, make big plays out of nothing. You know, they can grind it and that is what it is, but that's just not how you're going to move the ball. That's not how you're going to score points in the league. So in that regard, I would love to see him go. You know, Pete mentioned Harris. That I don't see him being there, but if he is, that'd be fantastic. I'm a little bit nervous about going back to a Clemson running back after what we saw with Spiller, but if Etienne's there or if we can move position to get Etienne, he can break it. But I do think that, you know, we talked about Dawson Knox and Brandon Beane in his post-season press conference. He talked about seeing Kelsey firsthand and when they saw Waller, the big impact that those tight ends can make. And I think they're going to be a team that wants to throw the ball, geared towards throwing the ball. And so that's where I think that we need a big improvement. The money's not really there to make a big splash, but you know, Jonnu Smith or Hunter Henry, those guys hanging out there. If you were to get one of those guys for this offense, I think that's the biggest impact that you could possibly add through anything semi-realistic.
And Jonnu can run the ball too.
He can. Give him the ball. Give him the ball, Jonnu. Come on.
Do you guys pay close enough attention to the draft that you would know and seen anything on Pat Freiermuth? Because that seems like a guy that would like be so good. Like he would help you in the run game as well. And he's a threat to catching the ball too. So and he's from right there. I don't know. He's not too far from your area. So it just seems like it'd be a great fit to me.
Yeah, when he was on the field this year, he was kind of a primary receiver for Penn State. He's got those receiving chops. And tight end like that, younger tight ends are going to take a little while to get up to speed. I don't know where he's going to fall in the draft. We're not used to having the 30th pick and then having the 60th pick. We don't draft like that. So it's you kind of have to change what you're doing, what you're looking at. I like Victoria's stat about first-round running backs, but I do wonder if you were to expand that to the top 45 or so, because we see so many of these really good running backs get devalued in the first round, but then go early in the second, and they make big impacts. Guys like DeAndre Swift, when they gave him a chance, but we've seen it in the past. You know, Kumar was a third-round pick in that sweet spot there. I would be curious to expand that stat and see where guys land, because it does seem like a lot of the Cam Akers or guys like that fall right in the early second round.
Let's talk about the draft, because we're doing that, and some of you guys did. Anything else like that you think about when you think about the Bills? Who might be a good match for them in the draft? Anybody else come up with any other names?
If you look at their defense, if they don't sign Matt Milano, like I'm not a Debbie guy, so I will defer to Jeff on all these. But if you look positionally at their needs, they need to improve their secondary. Like Josh Norman was, hey, you know what? Good for you. You gave it a good effort, but we saw what Derrick Henry did to him. And he just wasn't good enough. I mean, their secondary needs some work. I like the improvements that we saw from Taron Johnson over the course of the year. Levi Wallace is a decent player, but I think if you pair somebody up with Trey White to go along with, Poyer and Micah Hyde, that's a pretty formidable secondary if you could figure that out. If they don't re-sign Matt Milano, they're definitely going to need to take a linebacker. But like Victoria said, I'm of the same opinion as well. I'm fine with adding another back to that room. I just think that the needs on defense far outweigh the needs that they have on offense at this point.
I feel like from a fantasy perspective, if they take a running back, you're just going to want to avoid everybody, right? I mean, that's Victoria. What do you think? Like, would you be interested in any, even if they sign Harris? I mean, would you be interested in any of the running backs super high?
Probably not, because if they did sign someone like Harris, I imagine his ADP would be much too high for my liking.
If you look at how this team is structured, if they bring in somebody, they better have pass catching chops.
Yeah,
because they're gonna want it. I think that's another aspect of this offense that still can be unlocked. If you have that running back that we saw Devin Singletary in that AFC Championship game. Like my brother, who played high school football and was like an offensive lineman and wasn't very good, looked at me and said, I could have caught that. And I said, yeah, you're probably right. You probably could have caught that. And that was a huge turning point in the game. If you have that running back, and it's everybody wants Alvin Kamara, but somebody who can catch the ball like that out of the backfield, what a difference it makes for your offense and how that opens up the playbook so much more. How many times did we see the Bills run screens? They didn't run screens at all in the playoffs against aggressive defenses, and that really hurt them. Why did they not do that? Because they couldn't. They just didn't have the guys to do it. So if they're going to bring in somebody, even if it was, of the same ilk as like a Tariq Cohen, just to open things up a little bit with some speed and pass catching ability, I'd be okay with that.
I like Tariq Cohen. I'm one of the few
who
likes him.
So do I.
So I guess if we're going to turn the pages in from the draft, that leaves free agency as the only other way to add to your team here. So whether it's running back, whether you guys mentioned tight end, you guys are also mentioning the possibility of not having John Brown or Cole Beasley. So obviously they're going to be looking at a bunch of different areas. And Victoria, you mentioned adding to the offensive line, but what about skill position players that you think when you look at them, they might be a pretty good fit for this team? Pete, I'll go back to you on this.
I mean, in a perfect world, who wouldn't want Aaron Jones? He's used to playing in cold weather temperatures already. He would just kind of be making a longitudinal shift or latitudinal shift, whatever the word is. I'm not good at geography. But he'd be playing, going from Green Bay to Buffalo. But I don't think that that's in the cards. I don't think that Buffalo is going to be aggressive enough to get a guy like Aaron Jones, especially with the cap that we're looking at right now. Part of me fears that this team is kind of like almost like a Dallas Cowboys in the sense that like we're a family and they're going to do everything they can to keep, especially with the season that we just had, they're going to do everything that they can to kind of just keep everybody together. It's not going to happen, but I think that's what their priority is going to be first before they make a splash in free agency. And by the time they are ready to do that, guys like Aaron Jones are not going to be available anymore. So, as far as the draft, I know I brought up Harris before, but it's kind of like it was kind of like when Jerry Jones, again, not to make another Cowboys reference, but it's kind of like when Jerry Jones was sitting at 17 and CeeDee Lamb falls to him, and he's like, "Really? Like, how do I not take CeeDee Lamb at this point? Like, if Harris or Etienne fall to us at 30, it's like, how do you not take those guys? I know it creates a three-headed monster in that backfield, and for fantasy purposes, it's just, what are you going to do? But for practicality purposes, like, I don't know how you pass on a guy like that when you've just seen the running back production that we had this past year. I love Moss. I have his jersey. I love Singletary. My wife wants his jersey. I mean, like, I believe in these guys, and like Victoria was saying, if we can just open up the holes, these guys can. They can take the ball. They have 4.5 and 5.1 per carry, yards per carry, and everything. I mean, they're capable of doing it. So Victoria actually convinced me maybe we do pass on Harris at 30 and just take the best offensive lineman that's there for the depth, because when Cody Ford went down, like I mentioned earlier, that definitely was a huge hit for us. So that's kind of where I'm at. Just kind of digesting what everyone's been saying.
I love that because at least once a show, somebody who's a fan of a team convinces somebody else of something on the team, and I absolutely love that. So Jeff, I'm going to ask you kind of the same question, but I'm going to ask it a different way. Okay, so 2021 week 1 rolls around. You got Josh Allen. Who are the other skill position players other than Stephon Diggs that are joining him on the field?
I have a hard time seeing Beasley go. I know that there's some cap implications there, but I think he's a core member of the team. And like we've talked about, Allen just relies on him. I think that Gabriel Davis is ready to step up, and I kind of expect him to be there. I'm not sure what's going to happen with running back because they have used day 2 picks back-to-back years on Moss and Singletary, and I can't see them giving them another chance. Go back to tight end. Again, being stressed it. I just don't think Knox will show you flashes, but then he'll drop a wide open 7-yard pass for a first down out of the blue. So it just drives you nuts. I don't know what they're going to be able to do cap wise, but I'm a big tight end guy. I just think tight ends unlock so much in the offense. It makes it so hard for defenses to cover. If you've got a tight end that can get down to the seam, or a tight end like we saw with Kelsey that can just abuse people over and over again. So I'd love to see in free agency to go for a tight end. mentioned Jonnu and I mentioned Hunter Henry. Those are the two big names sitting out there. Tunyon, I don't know what's going to happen with him. I think he's a free agent. There's guys out there that I think can catch the ball and make a big impact in this offense. And if there's a new guy brought in, that's the position that I would love to see it.
Matt, who's out there?
Well, I was perusing Spot Track while everybody was talking, trying to see, and Jeff makes a good point about the tight end position. Like Jonnu Smith would be at the top of my list in terms of guys, but if you want to go into the bargain bin a little bit, what about an athletic guy like Gerald Everett, who's shown flashes of being able to make plays? What about if John Brown is gone? We can go into the bargain bin for a guy like Tim Patrick, who is pretty fast for a big man. He can go up and catch the ball, and he gives you an NFL wide receiver there, a guy that has proven with a bad quarterback in Drew Lock that he can actually be a useful piece. There are guys out there. I wouldn't go too crazy at the running back position. I think if you look at skill positions, tight end is a great point by Jeff. And I think investing in a cheaper wide receiver like Tim Patrick would be a great idea because he's not going to cost you that much. And I don't know. I apologize. I don't know who made the point earlier about what kind of market this is going to be. I think Jeff may have made it about this is going to be a tough market for wide receivers and guys are going to take less money. Like everybody thinks Marvin Jones is going to get paid. Marvin Jones is going to get paid squat, right? Yes, he was fine. But there are so many better wide receivers out there than Marvin Jones. So those guys start to take the pay hits. And guess what? Tim Patrick's going to fall way further than a guy like Marvin Jones. That's the perfect Buffalo Bills type guy that they can go out and get, a guy that wants a better opportunity with a better quarterback. That would be a guy that I would look at.
Yeah, we see these drafts have been so loaded with wide receiver talent the last couple of years, and the amount of free agents that are sitting out there with Godwin, Galladay, like guys like that are going to blow up the market. But there's just going to be plenty of talent sitting there that's just going to be musical chairs looking for anywhere to grab on. And you know, Buffalo was always looked down on. Free agents didn't want to go there, but with Josh Allen now and everything's changing, yeah, you might find a guy that can play and takes a little bit less money just for that opportunity to get on that field with the team.
And don't forget, we've got Jake Kumar on the practice squad. So
touchdown, Jesus!
Jesus.
I'm still an Isaiah McKenzie believer, but I don't know how it's going to.
I was gonna say that too about McKenzie. I really hope they bring him back. He is so speedy. If you remember that touchdown return he had in the Dolphins game, I mean, he has that burst. I feel like we don't utilize him enough. No. I'd love to see him back. I completely agree. I'd love to see Jonnu Smith come on our team. I mean, we've got the leadership in the tight end room is Lee Smith. I mean, yeah, he's probably a great friend, but we need someone who's got an experience to bring in some leadership. It could be, I mean, Hunter Henry is great too, but we know that tight end too takes time to develop. Players at that position, it takes years to develop. So I still believe in Knox, but he's not there yet. And the fact that Allen's only safety blanket is Beasley is a problem. I'd love to get him another guy that he could throw to in those pressure situations.
So almost no love for Dawson Knox here, and I get it. He did seem like in the red zone though, he was pretty effective like at the end of the year. I love the Everett call. That just, gosh, I'm pulling for that. That makes a lot of sense. That was really good, Matt. But like, you guys think there's nothing there with Dawson Knox?
No, he'll make an insane catch, but then the easy one, he'll just drop it, and you're like, what's going on, man?
Yeah,
I think that there's something there. I'm kind of like with Victoria here. It's like I believe in Dawson Knox. I feel like I'm a character out of The Dark Knight. Like I believe in Harvey Dent. I want to make pins that say I believe in Dawson Knox. But, but again, like Matt was saying, like, he'll make that insane, touchdown grab and then drop a 4-yard, gainer on first down. So it's a little topsy-turvy. I like the kid. I want him to do well. He is coming into his third year, which, that is the year for tight ends. It's usually the breakout year. So I believe in him in the sense that, okay, this is your third year, prove it. Okay, and I'm excited for him to be able to prove it. And if he can prove it, great. If he can't, well, okay, next man up.
Okay, last question. 2021, can Josh Allen take down Mahomes?
Absolutely.
Yeah, he can. It's tough because we traded Mahomes. And so it's like we got to beat him at some point. We can't just lose that guy every single year after we traded him.
I mean,
we can't have another, for the last 20 years, it's been Brady. We can't beat Brady. It can't be another 20 years of we can't beat Mahomes.
Yeah.
The stars. I said this. It was actually in the Fantasy Besties League. I was talking to I forget who I was talking to, but anyway, I made the claim. I was like, Bills Browns 2021 AFC Championship. I'm calling it now. The battle for Lake Erie. And someone in the league was like, "What is Mahomes just going to retire?" I'm like, dude, the stars can't align every year. Okay, it just it's not going to happen. He's going to lose weapons. He's going to lose Tyreek Hill. He's going to lose Travis Kelce. He's going to lose players on the offensive line. Even though he is a raw talent, it doesn't mean that you're God for 10 years on end. You're going to have your flaws. There's going to be times where he's going to suck. I'm sorry, but maybe not him, but just the situation that he's in is going to suck for him. So maybe not next year, maybe not the year after, but no. I mean, I think next year, I think we can absolutely take down Mahomes. Anything exactly. The Raiders beat Mahomes.
Yeah.
So there you go. If Derek Carr can do it, then Josh Allen can absolutely do it, and that's all I have to say about that.
Last word on the Buffalo Bills, Victoria. Anything else you want to add?
No, I believe in them too. I mean, I really pray that we didn't just get rid of Brady just to be under a lens with Mahomes and the Chiefs dynasty for the next 10 or 15 years. But I think the AFC Championship proved we're almost there, but not quite yet. So if we get the pieces together this offseason, I think we definitely have a chance to take them down.
Seems like Allen's kind of been leveling up every year, and I guess it'll be really interesting to see if there's another level that he can get to. I don't want to say he can't, because every time I think somebody said that, he's proved him wrong. So I think that's a Buffalo Bills show, guys. Great job. I definitely appreciate everybody for jumping in and being willing to talk about Bills Mafia and the Buffalo Bills. One last thing, just let's go back around the room. I'll go in the opposite order that we went off the top of the show. Tell everybody just where we can find you and what you're working on. Start with Victoria.
Yeah, you can find me at FFB_Victoria. I just want to thank you guys for having me on. So nice to meet you on. This was awesome talking about my Bills for an hour.
Matt?
You can find me at MattSN590. You can find my work at sportsnet.ca. I got ADP risers and fallers coming out after the Super Bowl. And guys, lots of fun tonight. Honestly, I had a blast. It is a lot of fun talking about the Buffalo Bills, and I love how many people love Josh Allen now.
Hey, any sneak previews on that article?
I can say that I broke it down by position. I can say that Buffalo Bills quarterback does pop up on the list of a big riser, and I got Noah Fant as a guy that people are going to be looking at as someone they're going to be drafting a heck of a lot higher than they did this past year.
I love Noah Fant. You're speaking my language. And I'm looking forward to the Matt Barkley article there, too. I appreciate that. Jeff, where can we find you?
Twitter, for whom J Bell tolls. I'm happy to talk anything pop culture, specifically Disney, or, do anything. But I'm goingfor2.com. I'm there all the time, and fantasyintervention.com as well. Make sure to check out both of those on YouTube. Subscribe, get those numbers up, join our circle, and a little bit of Fantasy Pros too. So
Moana is way underrated. She needs to be up there.
Solid,
Pete, where can we find you?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at PDStitz, and every now and then you may see an article pop up for Fighting Chance Fantasy. I do contribute to that, but mostly my focus has been on the video editing for Fantasy Alarm these days. I do retweet those out when they're posted, so every now and then, if you want to catch a couple of minutes of DFS chat, definitely for the Super Bowl this weekend, we have spread breakdown, over-under breakdown, DFS breakdown, props breakdowns. Howard Bender, Adam Ronis, Jen Piacenti, they do phenomenal work with all of that. So I chop it up for them, fit it on Twitter for that 2 minutes and 20-second time allotments, and just a quick little scroll through if you'd like to get in on any of that. So
very cool. Well, I like I said, I so appreciate you guys coming on. I am Cal. I'm at Calvin and Hobby, part of the at Dynasty Vipers. We have a lot of really awesome, exciting things going on right now. I don't know if you guys were able to catch it. If you didn't, please go catch the interview. I feel like I can really pump this one up because I wasn't on this show, but Matt and Lewis, FF Down Under, they interviewed Adam Rank this past week, and it was legitimately one of the funniest things I've ever watched. Like, I laughed more at that than I've laughed at almost anything in the last I don't know how long. It's been a long time. Those guys were just hilarious. At one point, Rank and Matt Donnelly were like going back and forth on who could like tell the most ridiculous story, and it was just hilarious. And then Bob Henry joined us after, like the kind of godfather of fantasy football. It was awesome. He even got real at a couple of moments and talked about like, his past. And like, if you could watch that whole interview and not leave motivated and like excited, like he's just such a great person to listen to. I know we got Ryan McDowell coming up. Rank is coming back on the show with James Coe at some point. So we are definitely excited about like a bunch of awesome things, a lot of exciting guests. And so, yeah. A lot of great things. Check out the website. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Appreciate you guys for coming on. For all these guys, Dynasty Vipers, for Matt, definitely appreciate you coming in. Hey, go Bills Mafia, even if Matt is going to judge me for saying